You picture a caveman gnawing on a slab of meat, fire crackling, a whole leg roasting on a spit, maybe a club leaning against a rock nearby. That image is everywhere. Documentaries, diet books, movies. It's the default picture in your head whenever anyone says ancient diet. It's also almost completely wrong. Not because your ancestors didn't eat meat, they did. But there was never one single ancient diet to begin with, and the real answer is far stranger than a caveman with a drumstick. What does a person eat when there's no refrigerator, no farm, and no guarantee of food tomorrow? Whatever exists, wherever you happen to be standing, for most of the roughly 2 million years the human lineage has existed, food wasn't a menu. It was a problem you solved daily, and the solution changed constantly. Where you lived, what season it was, whether the rains had come, whether the fish were running, whether someone brought down an animal that morning. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies have found something that overturns the caveman with meat image almost completely. Diets varied enormously by environment. Coastal groups leaned on fish and shellfish. Forest populations relied on roots and forage plants. Grassland groups followed migrating herds. Even neighboring groups ate differently because the environment itself was the menu, and the menu never stayed the same for long. Here's the detail that surprises most people. Insects weren't a survival food of last resort. For long stretches of history in many regions, they were a reliable, protein-dense staple. Termites, grubs, caterpillars, ants. Entomologist Mary Ann Shockley has documented just how nutrient-dense these foods actually are, often higher in protein per gram than beef, and a lot easier to find than a fleeing antelope. Does that change the picture in your head? The caveman with the meat leg starts to look a little less accurate. Replace him with someone crouched at the base of a tree, working grubs out of rotting bark, and you're closer to the truth. But the deeper story isn't really about which foods your ancestors ate. It's about what they did to those foods once they found them. They pounded it, ground it, soaked it, and eventually, most importantly, they cooked it. Richard Wrangham of Harvard has spent much of his career arguing. Cooking was one of the great turning points in human evolution. Cooked food is easier to chew, easier to digest, and hands your body far more usable energy than the same food eaten raw. A hard root became soft. A tough piece of meat became manageable. Cooking stopped being a convenience and became one of the defining features of being human. But cooking only solved one problem. Food still wasn't guaranteed. Imagine living without a supermarket. You can't just decide you're having chicken tonight. The chicken has to exist, and you have to find it, catch it, or trade for it. If you fail, there's no delivery app, no freezer full of backups, just tomorrow and whatever it happens to offer. So your ancestors lived inside constant uncertainty. Feast and famine weren't occasional events. They were the rhythm of the entire system. A successful hunt could feed a group for days. A good season meant fruit and roots everywhere you looked. Then the season would turn. A drought, a migration, a string of failed hunts, and the abundance would vanish almost as quickly as it arrived. Your body still remembers that rhythm, even though your life no longer follows it. Researchers studying metabolism and fat storage have long pointed out that the human body appears built to expect scarcity, to store efficiently when food is abundant, because abundance was never something you could count on lasting. Your ancestors' bodies weren't optimized for 3 guaranteed meals a day for an entire lifetime. They were optimized to survive not knowing. Now look at your own kitchen, or a grocery store aisle stocked floor to ceiling with food that never runs out and never depends on rainfall. Part of you is still bracing for a famine that for most people reading this will never come. That's the twist hiding underneath this whole story. Though it's worth being careful here, because it would be too simple to say every craving is just an ancient survival program screaming that famine is near. Human appetite is shaped by far more than evolution alone. Genetics matter, culture matters, stress and sleep matter enormously, and the modern food environment, engineered to be as craveable as possible, matters more than almost anything else. Evolution didn't hand you a fixed script. It handed you a nervous system built for a world where energy was precious and availability could vanish overnight. In that world, wanting calorie-rich food when you found it was useful. In this world, the problem barely resembles that one. The food just keeps coming. You don't have to hunt it, wait for a season, or even stand up. That's the strange mismatch underneath so much of modern life. The environment around you changed astonishingly fast, and your biology didn't get the memo. Not because you're broken or undisciplined, but because evolution doesn't redesign a species every time its environment shifts. You're carrying an ancient appetite into a food landscape nothing in your history prepared you for. So, picture your ancestors again. Not frozen beside a fire, endlessly gnawing on one giant piece of meat, but someone walking through a forest scanning for what's edible, digging for a root, gathering shellfish along a shoreline, cracking open nuts, checking under bark for grubs, carrying a rare, hard-won kill back to camp to cook over a fire that took real effort to keep alive. Every day they were answering the same questions. Where is the food? What's actually available? What's safe to eat? Is it worth the effort? And will there be enough before everything changes again? That was the real ancestral diet. Not a fixed plan, but a constant negotiation with uncertainty. There was no perfect ratio of protein, fat, and carbohydrate written into human history. No prehistoric meal plan waiting to be rediscovered. There was adaptation, experimentation, and the willingness to eat almost anything a place could offer, because the alternative was going hungry. Your ancestors didn't survive because they found the one perfect food. They survived because they could eat differently almost anywhere on Earth, and adjust again the moment the environment demanded it. So the next time someone describes the ancient diet with total confidence, be a little suspicious. Your ancestors weren't following a diet. They were solving a problem, one uncertain day at a time. And somewhere inside you, quietly, that same problem-solving instinct is still running, still scanning, still bracing for a scarcity your grocery store will never actually give it. You picture a caveman gnawing on a slab of meat. Now you know better.